when you're out here on the great edge of the Pacific and the great rainforest, we've got small firms and small government offices and small voluntary societies. And how can those people get the kind of training that you can take to General Motors or British Telecom? And the answer is they can't. So it is the job of people like ourselves with a new technology to take it to those people where they are so that they can have equal opportunity with British Telecom or Canadian Pacific.
One of the central problems in distance education is obviously the problem of distance itself. Here in British Columbia, the distances are absolutely enormous. One way of dealing with this problem is to adopt new technology. Knowledge Network is an attempt to do just that. 10, 9, 8.
Pick up, team.
No. 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Good morning. This is the Knowledge Network, British Columbia's educational television service. Our programming is transmitted via Canada's Annex C satellite to communities throughout British Columbia, the Yukon, and the Northwest Territories.
The Knowledge Network began telecasting in 1981, offering a range of courses and series. The barriers of time, distance, and geography were overcome. The use of communication satellites is now the one giant step that educators can use to fill gaps in the traditional system and reach people irrespective of their lifestyle or where they live. This delivery system we call the Knowledge Network is in reality an electronic highway.
British Columbia is nearly the size of Western Europe, with a population roughly that of Wales. The majority of that population is huddled in the southwest corner, centered on the cities of Victoria and Vancouver. The decision by the provincial government to host and fund Expo 86 in Vancouver indicated to the world beautiful British Columbia's brash sense of emergence. Expo's themes of transportation and communication struck a chord for a province whose economy is acutely dependent on both. The single most significant event in its economic history was the completion of the Canadian Pacific Railway, joining Canada's east to west coast at the Vancouver terminal. Domination by the southwest corner remains a potent political issue for a province economically dependent on the rich Pacific salmon fishing grounds around its huge coastline and on the timber and logging industries of its vast mountainous hinterland. Distance education has a long and honourable history in the province, and a network of community colleges exists to serve the widely dispersed rural population. Until the arrival of satellite technology, British Columbia's mountains effectively prevented the delivery of a television signal. Distance education was delivered by post. Now, KNOW, the Knowledge Network, has the potential of linking colleges one with another and the scattered population with itself. The creation of the channel was a clear political act by the then Minister of Education, Dr. Patrick McGair. What were the aims?
We had several aims. The principal one was to reach individuals in this vast geographic territory, several times the size of the United Kingdom, that are geographically disadvantaged and therefore do not have access to advanced systems of education. So we wanted those people to have an opportunity. The second group that we wanted to reach were those who perhaps were in urban areas, but who were psychologically prevented from attending a standard institution and would be more comfortable getting their education in the cloistered atmosphere, if you like, of their living room.
a learning system can occur between you and me in the conversation that we are having now. And if you extrapolate that to why we use technologies or any kind of educational system to connect people for learning, it's my view that what we're really trying to do is create conversations among people. So the learning system, as we tried to realize it here in British Columbia, was a way to have conversations among educational institutions and between them and their clients, the students.
Knowledge Network's executive director of programs from its inception until 1986 was Kathleen Forsyth.
What was important and exciting about the idea was that it was an organizational idea and not a technological idea. The technology was a tool and a way by which we could cause those changes to occur. But the truly interesting idea, I think, was to reconceive what we thought we were doing in education, to come at it from the point of view of learning and connection making.
You've described those two aspects as open skies and grassroots. Do you see it in those two ideas basically?
Well, the open skies grassroots concept was a notion to try and get across the idea that technological determinism is not the issue, although all over the world you see people falling in love with satellites and microcomputer networks and goodness knows what, and everybody's so excited about the technology. And it's my view that without the grassroots networking, which is the human use of tools we created, that all this open sky doesn't make any sense. I mean, just connecting machine to machine is not much use if there is no purpose for amplifying human intelligence.
There's 3 ways that you can take advanced study techniques.
Knowledge Network operates a full-scale television channel, generating some 5 hours a week of live programs on its telecourses, together with a rich diet of bought-in programs from around the world. But it's a unique system which can also harness program materials from a range of higher educational institutions, all of whom are linked to one another through the network by cable.
And Don, we've got 15-second ID number 3 on 6.
On the right-hand side of the master control room, pictures, lectures from a contributing college can be fed directly to any other or taken onto the network itself, and, like all programs, sent on the uplink to the stationary satellite for direct reception anywhere in British Columbia.
Just a snippet in the first 3 minutes of an interview. Right. Where are you calling from, please? Okay, Dale, I'll put you on hold. Just make sure you have the television set sound down, and I'll be getting you across to Roger as soon as we can.
In addition, there are programs where students are able to conduct a dialogue with the studio lecturer by phone. This interactive use of the TV studio has become a feature of KNOW's telecourses.
And we recognized that we needed to get to the independent learner wherever they lived. Now, this province has a
former Deputy Minister of Education and a strong advocate of educational opportunities provided by the satellite, Dr. Walter Hardwick became chairman of the Knowledge Network's board.
By 1982, we had, I believe, 85 learning centers, which meant that every college in this province, some school districts in the province, and the universities were all participating with the network in the development or delivery of courses. Now, the unfortunate thing is in 1983, this province went through an economic downturn and a period of restraint. Enabling funds that were going to the institutions were removed, and many of those centers were closed because of financial exigencies. However, a number of the principals and boards were sufficiently committed that they continued, in fact, to bootleg in the services to the province-wide system. But there was one college, North Island College, that from its very founding chose to operate on a distance education open learning system. And of course today, the restraint did not impact it as it did others, and it would be the full flower of the distance dispersed delivery system.
What would be the main achievements of North Island College as you see it?
I believe that they serve more adults in more places, more effectively, and I'm talking about educationally effectively, than any other institution in the province.
North Island College's writ runs the length of Vancouver Island and beyond to the smaller islands and a number of isolated communities on the mainland. The train from Victoria runs only as far as Courtenay, literally the end of the line. With a population of 30,000, it hosts one of NIC's 3 larger study centres. Once a supermarket, the hanging signs now announce videotapes and subject disciplines instead of fruit and veg. The college has only 3 centres like this and no central campus. The emphasis for NIC is on designing and delivering a system of distance education which recognises the real demands on a student's time. The college's Director of Programmes is John Taylors.
The important milestones in our year is on April the 14th, the salmon season has opened or it has not opened. Come July, the loggers are or are not working in the woods, depending upon the fire risk. And come the October, the length of the salmon season is important, where the fishermen are still out working. So these needs of ours, or the divisions of the year, bear no resemblance whatsoever to a nice, comfortable start up in September and finish in May. And we had to accommodate ourselves to it, and the first thing they did was we got rid of semesters and went to continuous entry-exit for all of our programs.
Gold River is 3 hours' drive from NIC's nearest main centre. The town depends on the pulp mill and the logging industry. The small tutor and study centre serves not only the town, but the outlying logging camps and isolated native communities. The centre's director, David Hudson.
Within the college here in Gold River, we have 1 full-time tutor and a number of part-time tutors. And being able to rely on the videotapes and the Knowledge Network programming gives us access to a much larger resource base. So it acts as a pacing device for the students, and it gives them something to hang on to while they're going through the course, if they want to keep up with the pace anyway.
What do you mean, pacing device?
Well, I guess in the traditional institutions, they would give a student a traditional 15-week semester in which to complete the course. At North Island College, we essentially give the students 6 months to complete a course. And when they first come in, they may be relatively highly motivated, and they may be going quite quickly through the course, but as other things begin to attract their attention, they begin to spend less time with the course. So if they get linked into a Knowledge Network broadcast, if they want to keep pace with that particular broadcast, then they have to continue doing the work along the pace that the television dictates to them. And we can use our local video resources to do the same. We can tell them you should come in and watch 1 videotape a week or 2 and whatever, and that gets them into the center, gets them working, gives them something that they know they have to come in and do, since they normally wouldn't have a 3/4-inch video machine at home that they could then take the tapes with them.
North Island College's rationale is that education is to be consumed and used by all. No matter how isolated, a community has a right to academic support and expertise. It takes 2 ferry trips to reach Cortez Island and its community centre at Manson's Landing. NIC's part-time tutor is Martha Yendel.
Now, are you the only tutor here?
I'm the only tutor. I'm a general tutor, so I'm center director, I'm general tutor, I'm janitor, I print the program. I create the programs and print the programs. I do both credit tutoring, and I organize the community education or non-credit program as well. And I liaison with other centers and other colleges, such as the Emily Carr College Outreach Program.
Many roles there.
Yes.
But what happens when a student comes along who's not in your subject?
So when I have an enrollment that's out of my area in terms of being able to grade papers, such as in economics or in some cases in advanced accounting courses, I then work as general tutor in everything but the grading of the papers and the exams. And those are sent to a marking tutor in a larger center, either Campbell River or perhaps one of the other centers, depending upon where the course tutor is located.
Our resources have gone to these local learning centres, as we call them, where we put a tutor. And that is the important difference, I believe, between the system we use and most systems which carry this label of distance education, which is why we use the term open learning, because there on the ground, in the community where the student is, no matter how small, there is a local tutor who's going to aid, abet, and help them along, push them where necessary, and just generally encourage them, as well as being able to give them some factual information if it is within their field. With our system, we can look after a community of one. And when we acquired our faculty and told them that they have to start coming up with a learning system, we said, make it possible for the wife of the lighthouse keeper on Cape Scott to take that course. And if they took that as the most extreme set of circumstances, where we had to deliver an educational service, following backwards, it would work in a town of 30,000. But designing a course with all of the infrastructure of support that a town of 30,000 has, you will certainly exclude the wife of the lighthouse keeper on Cape Scott.
You don't have a central campus as such in all this?
No, we decided to take our resources and distribute them evenly, as evenly as possible, to all of the far-flung communities that we serve, and will not allow a central campus like a succubus to suck in the resources to itself.
These social aspects have led you to talk of the patchwork curriculum. Now, how does that fit in?
Okay, the patchwork quilt curriculum is a metaphor from my grandmother from the maritime part of Canada. And the patchwork quilt, in my view, is a high art form of the women of Canada and of the United States. And it was built of reusable resources that were put together with templates and patterns in a cooperative way, which at one time had individual participation when you make the unique patterns, and then they get stitched together to form a kaleidoscope, a pattern that makes sense in a coherent way, although each of the parts is distinct. And this metaphor, which has deep meaning to me from my own culture, struck me as a very useful one for understanding what I call the principle of cooperative individuality. That when we try to make networks happen among discrete institutions or among individuals, we have to first acknowledge our uniqueness, and then we find our common ground. And it's where those two come together that we must have conversations about how we are the same and how we are different.
This is British Columbia's educational television service, the Knowledge Network.
But is the balance right between general appeal and direct educational appeal? Dr. Wing, principal of North Island College.
I would think from the needs of a college of the kind that North Island is, trying to serve many of what you would call the smaller communities, smaller populations, no. There's too great an emphasis on what might be called popular or entertainment style. Although those kind of programs are very high quality, indeed some of them come from the BBC, some of them from PBS, some of them from places like National Geographic. Extremely good quality, highly informative, but they are not mainline education. They are not delivering the, if you like, the curriculum of this province in either the high school level, secondary level, or at the first year, second year university level. They are not aimed at deliberate learning objectives that one might develop for adults in the province. And so, in a way, the college, this college and many other colleges and many of the communities don't then have made available to them television that they can integrate into their programs, their courses within any particular community.
And a further issue is not just integration of television and study materials, but the integration of institutions themselves. The Open Learning Institute, OLI, had a provincial mandate to provide distance education, but found its relationship with television a difficult one. OLI's principal for many of its early years was Ron Jeffels. Had the Institute relied too heavily on print, ignoring the potential of television?
That's certainly one of the, that's a good comment. However, there's a history to all of this, and that is 7, 8, 9 years ago when the place was created. It was given the mandate of adding television to the learning process. But there was so much going on just to get the thing off the ground, just to get it started, to gather staff and so on, that they had to delimit their activities. That's one reason. The other reason was that the sinews of war were not provided in the origin for the creation of a television broadcasting facility. Now we're looking to the future, and that means with the fusion of the two institutions, the Knowledge Network and OLI, I hope and expect that there's going to be a much closer liaison between the two groups, and that the learning process will profit thereby.
This new fusion is the result of a letter sent in 1985 by the minister, Dr. McGeer, requiring both OLI and Knowledge Network to make plans for a merger in a new open learning authority.
I think what the government was concerned about with respect to the 1985 letter with respect to the Open Learning Institute and Knowledge Network was that there were too many coordinators. And because there were too many coordinators, the people in the field didn't know which drum they were supposed to be marching to. So what they were really trying to do was to get coordinated leadership at the province-wide scale. And so I don't believe it is a contradiction.
How do you think the political decision will change the direction of Knowledge Network?
I don't think that the direction of the Knowledge Network per se will change significantly. I think that it has become clarified over the last 5 years, and there is a quite clear sense of its role. I think its role will expand to include what was originally in the concept, which was more technologies than television. And I think we've added a dimension which we never had fully acknowledged until the present, which is that we have a role as providing leadership in general education using technology.
It took some time to get through, I think, to the academic tradition is that this is a perfectly valid form of acquiring one's education. And to me, the most interesting factor of it is that the accent is on the word learning and not on the word teaching. We've moved the emphasis to the learner and away from the teacher. For some professionals, this is a difficult jump to make, there's no doubt about it, because what you do by giving the student the electronic media, you've made a complete sea change in the educational process because you've empowered the student, and that's the difference. Right. The student now has the power to access the resources, to make of them what they will, and I think this is a great jump which education in general has to make, that we are now empowering the student, and it means a basic change in the word teacher.
Right, let me press you on that, because you speak about the electronic highway, for example, but is there a danger of concentrating on the technology at the expense of the quality?
I think very definitely so, and that is why, to get back to an earlier remark, we make certain that in all of our communities we have professionals there in situ to help the student with those marvelous processes of analysis and synthesis that the normal professor in the lecture hall, frankly, doesn't have time to concern himself with. He's too concerned with getting across the facts of the case.
Welcome back to Advanced Study Techniques. What I'd like to do is to recap the registration condition one more time right off the top, give you an opportunity to write it down if you haven't done so yet. For that particular program. Roll VTR. 4, 3, 2, 1, through. Watch Thursday nights at 10:30. Good television.
You can make a Caller's Choice request by phoning the Knowledge Network at these numbers.
Or from the Provincial Educational Media Center, 7351 Elmbridge Way, Richmond, BC, B6X 1B8.
We got a call now from Peggy in Victoria. Hello, Peggy.
Hi, Roger.
Yes.
Can you tell me, is it necessary to have the packet television set and...
Thank you, everybody. Oh, you want that?